Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, the cast of the Str8 No Chaser podcast. Hey, what you drinking? Okay, so we're about to get into a space that I'm going to tell you, I haven't been in this space before. You know, I pride myself at being pretty comfortable wherever I go, and it takes a lot. It takes a lot to make me nervous. And I'm not going to say that I'm nervous here because I've interviewed some pretty significant senior executives one-on-one. And, and if you've been listening, every season I tend to have a couple of interviews where I have two people. I bring back some people and we have two people that are interviewed. But this time I'm interviewing the entire cast of Str8 No Chaser. And we got 3 of the 4. I don't know. I need you guys to hang with me. Because these dudes are for real. It's the real deal. We talk about this being a space for straight talk that you can't get anywhere else. I don't know how to come more clean than bringing the host of Str8 No Chaser. So with that, I am honored to welcome in KG, John, and Ra from Str8 No Chaser. Guys, come on into the room. Welcome to Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership.
Appreciate it. It's going to be dope.
What's going on, guys? What's going on?
Yeah, how's it going, brother?
No, I'll tell you, I have checked out your podcast. I haven't checked it out as a podcast because when I first became familiar with your podcast, I saw the video, the online version, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and so just the camaraderie that's there. Just kind of drew me in, and I think I started stalking you from a video perspective from that point on. So I got a lot of questions to ask, but my audience knows that all of this is prelude until I get an answer to this first question. So in order, whatever order you want to take, tell me your name and then tell me what you're drinking.
I will jump out there first. What's going on, podcast land? Brother, thank you for having us on your show. You a grown ass man. So if you didn't like us, you probably just would have said, y'all, welcome to Str8 No Chaser. Let's get into the convo. But you gave us some good words. I know they're not all idle words. So I appreciate you from the heart. Rasheen, the one and only Ra. And what I'm drinking, I am drinking Uncle Nearest. I don't know if Uncle Nearest is in your stash. Pretty sure it is. But Uncle Nearest, named after the black man who taught Jack Daniels how to distill whiskey, distributed by a black woman, all woman executive staff. It is the most awarded whiskey in the world since it's been out in distribution. Uncle Nearest is my jam. People know I stand for Fawn Weaver.
Okay,
I stand for it. So this is a joint right here.
All right, wait. So I got to check in. So which Uncle Nearest? Because I'm kind of deep into Uncle Nearest. So are you rolling with the 1856, the 1884, or are you one of those 1820 dudes?
Yeah, I'm 1856 all day long.
Okay, 1856, and we're gonna take this moment to put another shout out to the Uncle Nearest crew. Fawn Weaver, here's another one. I need to have you on this podcast. Fawn Weaver, Victoria Butler, Sherry Moore. Come on now. So let's keep going. Who's next?
Basically, what's up, people? I appreciate it too. I want to co-sign everything Ross said. You know what I'm saying? Allowing us to be on your podcast and, just come out and talk to you. We have watched some of the episodes and everything. So having us on your platform didn't have to happen, but you did it. And, like Ross said, stand up, dude. We appreciate it and everything. I'm the basic dude of the crew. So I am keeping it very simple. Jack Daniels and Coke. That's it. Very basic, gets the job done.
All right. I like it. Just get in, do what you need to do, get out. I like it. I like it. All right. So KG, so what you drinking, man? Let's close this out.
All right. So Str8 No Chaser, the podcast. I am Keltrick. Everybody calls me KG. And if you are familiar with our show, I am always drinking some form of tequila. Today's choice of tequila is a Reposado from Kah. K-A-H. It is phenomenal. I just closed my bottle out, so this is a special moment in time. Rest in peace, Kah. But I am sipping on tequila as always.
Wow. See, I mean, that's an education, right? That's an education. So one of the things I want to put a nod to is the fact that everybody came with something to drink. So I appreciate that. Would expect no less from Str8 No Chaser.
Showing up in here with apple juice, watered down.
We got to do what we got to do sometimes.
All right. Well, hey, so as my listeners know, I put a lot of thought into what I break out for these conversations based upon the people or the person that I'm planning to have the conversation with. And with this one, it was a tough decision because, again, just such a high regard for what I have seen on the podcast from these guys and the connection that we have through my sister, Dana Bingham Gonilo. It was hard for me to choose which one to go with. So I decided to do something that I have not done before. As a matter of fact, this is a project that I had undertaken of creating an infinity bottle where you take the corners of all of your soldiers right before they keel over and pour the corners into a bottle. And at the end of this project, you have this unique concoction that will never be duplicated. And so that's what I've done. I've started my infinity bottle. Let me tell you what's in this. I've got the basic fundamental Buffalo Trace. That's my base. That's 90 proof. But then I've got Ridgemont 1792 full proof, which is a go-to for me. That's 125 proof. I've got Booker's Bluegrass, which is 127.9. Four Roses small batch, which is 104, and then I just put in some Elijah Craig small batch 94. And I've just been simmering this, and I've got this in an I.W. Harper 15-year bottle because it looks like a decanter. This is like amazing. The only corner that I haven't put in here is Uncle Nearest 1820 because I can't find that bad boy anywhere anymore. So I'm afraid to finish that off. But I'm gonna go ahead and pour a little bit of this.
Interesting. See, form like Voltron.
And we're gonna see what I've been brewing here.
Salute, cheers.
Oh, good Lord Almighty. Good Lord Almighty.
How long did you let it simmer?
I've been doing this one for about 6 months. 6 months. Oh my gosh, this has a kick too. This has a kick to it. And I'm gonna enjoy this bottle because I don't know when I'm gonna open this again to pour some out. Usually I pour stuff in, but because of this conversation, I felt like it was appropriate to have a mix of whiskeys so that we could get into this mix of conversations. So while I enjoy this, I would love for one or all of you to talk a little bit about what is this podcast that you guys have? The backdrop that I'll share is you guys have been friends for a long time, and this was just a crazy idea that you guys had after connecting to catch up, and you decide, what the heck, let's let other folks hear what we talk about. But somebody give me a background as to what is this Str8 No Chaser phenomenon that's happening.
From your mouth to the internet's ears. We like that word, phenomenon. We're just four friends, like you said. We have known each other for going on 20 years plus. We all were connected via Howard, but we all came from various different places and so on and so forth. So we're very different, but we're all very good friends and everything. And over the pandemic, when COVID hit, we used to be able to get together at least, once a month, every now and then, go out, chop it up, chill, talk. We couldn't do that anymore. So came up with the Zoom calls and boom, it went from there.
Can I add to that in terms of, because I don't want anything to go over
Right.
people's heads. When John says, because I want to speak to the special sauce. When John says we are very different, you have 4 distinct personalities. And right now we live in an age where when fellas run together, they're cookie cutter, carbon copy images of each other. They're all dressed the same, talk the same, drive the same, deal with the same type of women. We are 4 unique dudes that have been anchored into each other's lives. And I think for us, that's that special. I used to tell Neil all the time, you couldn't put a better 4-man crew together. You couldn't. So that's the thing that kind of keeps us going.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And that's one of the things that I'm going to tell you. I was watching a couple of episodes because I was trying to figure out what the connection was, because at one episode it seemed like 2 of you were ganging up on one person, and the next episode the other 2, it's like, wait a second, I don't understand who's in and who's out, right?
I'll to answer your previous question and then jumping on this one, I would say that the foundation of our show is friendship. At the end of the day, we're all close friends. We've been in each other's lives. We've been in each other's weddings, the birth of our children, even supporting separations, whatever you can imagine that happens in life, we have been there for one another throughout those stages, good, bad, ugly, and then the ones we can even talk about publicly. And I think because of that connection, we're able to have some really robust discussions. And to your point, we can disagree hard, real hard. And there's no hard feelings. We know it's all love. And it's coming from a space of care, affection, concern, and sometimes tough love, quite frankly.
Mm.
We get a chance to have those discussions publicly, like people get a chance to get, peek behind the curtain, so to speak, and see how we are. To Ross' point, we're very distinctly different personalities. Everybody kind of shows up with their own uniquenesses. Neil, if we have a bet, Neil's gonna be the first person to curse. Like if we got to bet money, my money's always gonna be on Neil to throw out the first, vulgarity. John's gonna be the first person to make everybody laugh. I might say something a little off the wall. Rasheem is typically try to be grounded, but he can be evil raw at times as well. So that comes out too. So we just have a good time.
People get a chance to actually see, a bunch of Black men that are friends, and it's not. I'm trying to think, like, you don't really see that kind of thing that often. You see it, movies or TV shows or whatever the case is like that. But it's hard, I think, for people to make friends, especially as we get older. We're all in our 40s, almost in our 50s. You know what I'm saying? And we've known each other for a long time. And I think that energy kind of shows itself to people. And, we can have conversations about anything from something trivial to something very, very serious, because we are all, tight and we know one another and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like giving people a window into the kind of conversations that I think other people have. Everybody's got their own little group of friends, but you very rarely see them people and hear what they talk about. It's kind of stuff that you just see at this point in time. You see it on the internet or you see it via text message or something, but to actually hear dudes that's actually friendly talking is, especially Black men, does not happen that much that I'm aware of. And it's not always about what Black women are doing or not doing, that kind of energy.
Yeah, it's definitely, my experience has been that it's definitely not the stereotypical conversations that you see from us that are, on the television shows, because very often, I will see some of those characterizations on television shows and can't identify with it, right? Because that's not how I talk. That's not what I talk about. That's not my perspective. But inevitably, when I watch one of your podcasts, I find myself agreeing wholeheartedly with one of you on a topic. But as soon as we go to the next topic, I'm agreeing with somebody else because that previous dude has totally lost his mind on this one, right? Talk to me a little bit about. Okay, so John, when you did your intro, you said that you guys have your foundation in that you all met and formed your friendship at Howard, but you didn't say Howard University. So I just want to put that out there specifically, Howard University, because there are two things that I'd love to get into. Number one, I'm sure that you all aren't the only people that you have met from Howard University. Of all the folks on campus, of all the folks that you've run into, what is it about this group, these three guys that have caused each of you to say, let's keep doing this?
All four of us didn't meet at Howard University. Neil and I met a year before the two of us met both John and Keltrick at the same time. We met the summer before we came down to Howard University back in New York at this poetry spot in Harlem called Sugar Shack Cafe. We bumped into each other at Howard and in the lobby of the East Towers. And then it was like, hey, yo, I saw you at, and then we started having conversation. And at that point, we started, of course, comparing notes because we were both from New York, saw each other in New York. Come to find out, we both were poets. We liked to write. I mean, that's how he saw I was performing at the show. Then come to find out, we both got the same birthday, just a year apart.
Oh, wow.
And then we found out there was a particular young lady we were both seeing at the same time. Me, when I was upstate New York in school with her, and him, when he was downstate, he was her downstate boyfriend. Didn't know.
Now, I've heard of blood brothers, but that's a little bit too close, man.
It was crazy. It was crazy. But for me, it spoke to
bumping heads.
Right. It spoke to the serendipitous nature of the connection. And then when you get a year later, both Neil and I are, we young, we struggling, we're on our own. And then we bump into trying to make ends meet. We work a summer program, and these two gentlemen are also working the summer program, John and Keltrick. And then we start to bond over the struggles, the challenges, the obstacles of just trying to grow in to be Black men at Howard University, confronted with a whole bunch of things that's trying to take us out. And I think we were able to form as a unit to get us through each day. But we saw something special in the way we supported each other in that summer that didn't look like any other support that I had gotten from any other group of Black men that I had been with up to that point.
Absolutely.
And it was worth preserving over time.
I'll add to this point. So at the time, I was pursuing Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. One of the people that was over the program was a member of the chapter, Alpha chapter at Howard University. And so when I met Rasheen, Neil, and John, they were just a part of the program. John can tell his version of kind of how he got involved in that as well. But you can hear Rasheen and be like, all right, this guy's kind of interesting, right? The way he speaks, his command of the room, like he has that aura about him. Neil and I had radio wars. So we would turn our radios up loud in the dorm. We would see who had the loudest system. And I always won, by the way. And so we just got cool off of music. And then John and I had met previously just through a kind of like the interaction that Neil and Rasheen had, like, hey, I've seen you before. I remember you. And it was just like, okay, cool. And so the four of us, we were I think if you think about because there were other guys that were part of the program, these were just the four that I would say I gravitated to. Like this group of people were the ones who I thought were intriguing, authentic, honest, consistent, present, caring at the right level, and not guarded and fake and phony. So, and then over the course of that time frame, my grandmother died. And the support that I received from these men at that time frame, because that was a pivotal moment for me. It was beyond what I could have expected. And, from that moment on, we have been in each other's lives at various points to support, lift up, tough love, all of those things that I shared earlier. I mean, we had no hot water together when we lived in the house together. And we lived through that.
Wow.
We didn't have any cables. So we would sit in the hallway and just talk to each other for like hours upon hours. People don't know those types of struggles. Like we had no money, so now we got some money and we can do all of these things we want to do now. So it's a really great experience that we can look back on.
Yeah. If you're fortunate, then you're able to create new friends. But no matter how much fortune you have, you can never create new old friends. So that is just tremendous. The other area that I wanted to get your perspective on, because we've heard a lot in the news recently in the past few years about the strength of HBCUs. Howard in particular, with Kamala Harris becoming the first African American vice president. But HBCUs, there has been something that I have experienced because I did not go to an HBCU myself. But I've had a lot of friends, really, really close friends who are alums of HBCUs. And I've said this before, and usually this almost causes a fight until I explain it. But usually my experience with HBCU alums is y'all come with like this confidence day one, like before you've even done anything. It's like before you've done anything to prove that you've got anything, there's this arrogance that usually gets bared out, but not at day one. And what is that? And is that true, or is that just my perception?
I wouldn't call it arrogance. I would say it's confidence because you've endured. There was a struggle that occurs at an HBCU where you're among people who look like you, people who have some common experiences that may be familiar with you. And when you complete that process and cycle, there's something to be said about, everybody kind of going through the same rite of passage, so to speak. And once you complete that process, you can look at a fellow HU alum and be like, you know what it's like to be at the Mecca. You know what it's like to go through the capstone. You know what it's like to walk the yard. You know what it's like to go to the calf, go to the punch out. All of these things are just, communal experiences that everybody kind of shares. And when you finish that experience, we still go back. We go to homecoming. We have a great time at homecoming. Some people get money. A lot of people don't. But that's another story. But we love it. It's HU.
I have a very different, I guess, experience than Keltrick, Rasheem, Neil. I was initially not a student. That period that they were talking about, where we all met at the camp and everything like that, I wasn't a student at Howard at that time. I was going to school at Prairie View A&M. I have a totally different outlook on things. I used to be in the military, bunch of different experiences and everything else. All that to say, I feel like Howard really prepared, at least me, for the quote unquote real world, in the sense that if there was something that I needed to do, nobody was going to be able to necessarily help me. I had to figure it out, but I could find that one person that could help me. And that's been something that I've taken on with me throughout time. A real quick story. I was going to school at Prairie View A&M. I was in contact, because this was after the summer that we all met, which was like summer of 99. So I was going to Prairie View at that time. And I had gone back after the summer, go back to school in Texas. And I was talking to Ra over the Christmas break going into the year 2000. And I was upset and I didn't want to go back to school at Prairie View, et cetera, et cetera. He was like, yo, come up here to Howard. We can work it out. We'll come up here to Howard. Now, again, this was when we was young. Ra was probably older than me and more established, or whatever you could say, but he wasn't, you know what I'm saying, like the dean or nothing like that. He was like, he worked at Howard. He was still living in the dorm. So I'll put it to you like that. So, it wasn't like he was big time, and I knew that, but the whole of it all was like, I had enough faith and belief in like Rasheem and who he was, because I knew him very well, and Keltrick and who he was, and Neil and who he was, that I could say, okay, and John and who I was, that I could say, even if everything fell apart, I feel like I could kind of make it happen in DC by myself, essentially. But then when I went up there, Rod took me like by the hand and walked me around the school and was like, yo, here's a dorm room. Talk to this person about getting enrolled. Here's the damn financial aid. All those other little things that I'd never had. No, like, people didn't go to college in my family. I was the first person to go. Nobody told me about financial aid or loans, all that other good stuff. So like Howard prepared me for real life, in the sense that they might tell you, yo, you are out of money for the year. So I don't know what you're going to do. You're kind of short. You can't call mom and dad, or at least I couldn't. You've got to figure it out. And that's really how the real world is. You are going to be told no, but you got to kind of, work your jelly a little bit and figure it out. And that was like the first time that I was like, okay, this is kind of how it is. So what I'm trying to say is speaking to your point about why certain historically Black colleges graduates come in and feel like, oh, I've experienced
I got this
toughness or whatever the case is. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you from my perspective, Howard for me was grad school. My undergraduate experience was a PWI or HWI, historically white institution, upstate New York. And for people who don't know, upstate New York ain't no different than Deep South when dealing with people of other colors. They are just as racist, if not more. So I had that experience for 5 years. It took me 5 years to get out of the University of Albany, 5 whole years. And I'm talking about fighting, Black male scapegoating, when crimes go down, they coming up campus looking for all the Black students to be like, it had to been one of them, fighting classmates, literally calling you the N-word as they walk across campus, fighting, and, because we a little bit old, watching O.J. Simpson, the verdict come down in the campus center. You 10% of the population, you surrounded by, you look like a chocolate chip in the cookie dough, and they are irate. So having that experience and then getting down to Howard, and I was seeing, we're struggling. I'm like, ain't nobody called you a nigga. What are you struggling? Like, you surrounded by your people in all this culture. I was calling my folks up talking about, listen, we've been living on the ugly side of the world. Everybody need to come down here. Like, that whole idea of a Black aesthetic where you see Black beauty and you're surrounded by that, loved it. And I think that fed the confidence that when you're at a white school and you're part of the Black Student Union, you know what it could look like, but you don't see it en masse.
Yeah.
You get to Howard, you surrounded by your people. It's like, oh my God. And that support for 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, however many years that support shapes your worldview. So now when you step off that college campus, it's like, I got 1 million people who got my back.
Yeah.
Whether I see them or not. So I think that plays into the confidence as well.
Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.